Hi everyone, welcome to Laser Insights China. I'm your host Xiaodong. Today, we're joined by Travis, who recently designed and built a fiber tube laser cutting machine capable of cutting 6 feet long pipes. He navigated numerous challenges and gained a valuable experience through the process. So we'll explore his motivations, design journey, and obstacles he's faced, and his advice for DIY enthusiasts. Travis, welcome to the show, and we're excited to hear about your impressive project.
Thank you.
Okay. So first question is that you just finished your first project, which is a flatbed laser cutting machine. So what inspired you to start this tube laser cutting machine?
Yeah, well, I enjoyed making that so much, and
Mm-hmm.
I love building machines, but I usually use aluminum extrusion and corner
Mm-hmm.
brackets and T-nuts to
Mm-hmm.
assemble everything, and it's a very tedious process. So I thought, why not build another laser machine that
Mm-hmm.
would allow me to process tubes, and I could use that to cut the tube to length and weld the frames, and that would probably be way easier.
Okay. So you mentioned that you prefer ordering materials in small batches. So what motivates you to design a machine capable of cut these 6 foot long pipes?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of research on the material that I might buy to use in my machine.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that if anything over 6 foot, the shipping costs went way up. So I thought, okay, well, I'll
Yeah.
just make my machine designed to build and cut 6 foot lengths. And it happens to fit in my workshop too.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what was the biggest challenge you faced during your design phase? How did you overcome these challenges?
Well, I would say probably designing the smaller scale front chuck and making it
Mm-hmm.
to be self-centering. That
Yes.
took a lot of research of mechanical centering systems that I had no idea about.
Yeah. The I saw your first video, right, about the self-centering track a little bit. It's very complicated for me.
Me too. Me too.
Okay. And so, what design changes did you make throughout the project? For example, you initially planned to place the Z-axis motor and the tube plate, but later you changed your mind. So why?
Yeah, you know what happened? I forgot to take into account in my 3D model
Mm-hmm.
the extra length of the BM110 3D version of the cutting head.
Mm-hmm.
It has
Mm-hmm.
a slightly longer nozzle. And so I
Mm-hmm.
needed to raise the whole X and Z axis up to make it to the proper height for cutting the pipe. And
Yes.
also, I experimented with a cheap plastic gear rack, which turned
Okay.
out to
Oh,
be no good. So I had to change that and make it a steel gear rack later.
okay. Another lesson.
Yeah.
So, how satisfied are you with the final size and the functionality of the machine?
Yeah, I think the size is perfect for anything I want to use it for. The functionality seems to be great so far. I probably want to take a few more measurements and make sure everything is aligned perfectly so the tube's as centered as it could possibly be. But yeah, overall, I'm happy.
So, what experience did you gain? Did you during the construction of this machine?
Yeah, well,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. But I would say I was most excited to learn about the Ray Tools XC4000 T2 controller.
Mm-hmm.
This was my second time using a Ray Tools controller.
Yes.
And I just continue to be impressed with their software and features given their cheap price point.
Mm-hmm.
And this tube cutting controller has so many more capabilities that I didn't even get into, such as tube supporting systems and outfeed tables. So yeah,
Yeah. So let's talk about your design self-centering track. So uh, maybe I need to open this for our
yeah.
audience to a better demonstration.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
hold on. Sorry, screen. Okay. So can you see the
Yeah,
see
I can see the
the
picture. Yeah.
yes. Okay. Let's go on. Um so the first question is why did you choose to design and build your own self-centering track instead of using a off-the-shelf one?
Yeah. Well, the size and the weight and the motor requirements for all the
Mm-hmm.
commercial chucks were just way too big for my needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I searched, and you even helped me search, and couldn't find anything for a smaller size. So I really
Mm-hmm.
had no other option but to try to build it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So could you explain in detail how the self-centering track operates? Specifically the gear and rack mechanism and the roller adjust parts, even though you have demonstrate them in your first uh videos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see a good video of how
Mm-hmm.
the inner workings are in my first video. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
basically, there's both of the roller wheel mechanisms that are coupled to gear racks, and they each have a central gear spur. So whenever you turn an adjustment screw, they both either move in or outwardly, just depending on the size of pipe you need to constrain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what difficulties did you encounter while building this truck? So how did you resolve them?
Yeah, well, it actually came together surprisingly well for my first attempt. There was just
Mm-hmm.
only some minor modifications needed. Mostly that came down to the lack of precision in my hobby CNC router and
Mm-hmm.
milling machines.
Mm-hmm.
A few of the features didn't quite meet the tolerances I was aiming for, but yeah, overall, it came together pretty well.
Okay. So, can you tell us the difference between your design one and the commercial one? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, most of the commercial ones, I believe they're the clamp pneumatically.
mm-hmm.
So where
Yeah.
mine is manual, I have to take out a hex key and
Mm-hmm.
adjust it in or out to the size. I believe,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the commercial ones, it's just all air controlled and it automatically clamps. Also,
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed a lot of them are really long and skinny, allowing the rear chuck to fit up inside
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
front chuck so
Yeah.
that you don't waste as much of your material.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really, I guess I wasn't really able to figure out a way to do that on mine, but I have to lose maybe like 6 inches of my material at the end. But
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's what I can do.
But I see also your design one also have the own advantage, especially for the how to say the truck the warehouse project, especially suitable for your design. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just its size. There's really nothing on the market like it. So yeah, if you're like trying to build a smaller machine for a smaller tube like I was,
Mm-hmm.
turns out it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I didn't even mention that we partnered with a third-party manufacturer, and now
Mm-hmm.
you can buy it on your website. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to go through the pain that I did to
Yeah.
design and assemble it all. So that's super convenient.
Yes. 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 Okay. So let's move other components. Um. Hold on.
Yeah.
See. How did you select the various components of your machine? For example, the motors, drivers, controllers, and laser heads.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, one of the perks of me building my projects on YouTube is that I've been able to make great partnerships with companies that are willing to sponsor products and help me bring these machines to life.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, Lead Shine sponsored all the motors for the project. So I figured out the sizes and specs of motor I would need, and
Mm-hmm.
they were happy to support me for the project. And also Skyfire generously sponsored the controller, the laser head, and the gas control system. And I chose the BM10 head again because
Mm-hmm.
it works great on my other machine. It
Mm-hmm.
has the 3D version. And yes, same with the controller. I was really happy with the Ray Tools XC3000 controller on my flat sheet cutting machine. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided to try their XC42 controller. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically designed for tube cutting, and it's great for the price.
Yeah. And my next question is that so what makes the Ray Tools XC4000 T2 controller and the Ray Tool 3D B1110 110 so make them suitable for your project?
Yeah, all three, the controller and the laser head, are all specifically designed for tube cutting applications.
Mm-hmm.
So the controller provides all the necessary inputs and outputs you need in motor control, and it's very flexible to support any of the features that you would do or don't want to use. And I was surprised to find out using their 3D cut head software and the tube kit nesting software, how easy it was to set up the files. I was thinking it was going to be a real challenge, but it turns out it's pretty easy. I
Mm-hmm.
just export my files from Fusion and import them, and I'm cutting in minutes.
Okay, good for you. And could you introduce the BM10 autofocusing laser head and its advantages in pipe cutting, the 3D one? Yes.
Yeah, the 3D model, it's got the extended skinny nozzle. So it allows it to fit into tight corners. Like my other BM110 wouldn't be able to do that.
Yes.
And for example, the Ray Tools tube cutting controller, it has a software upgrade that lets you cut different tube shapes, like I-beams, for example.
Yes.
And there would just be no way to get into those tight corners without the 3D model that's had
So let's talk about the servo motors. What type of servo motors do you use, and how are they installed on your machine?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I used the Leachite servos for the
Mm-hmm.
project.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up using a different transmission method for every axis. The Z axis uses the servo motor with a brake to
Mm-hmm.
keep the head suspended when it's powered off, and it
Mm-hmm.
uses a ball screw to lift and lower the head. The X axis uses a belt and pulley system to move back and forth, and the
Mm-hmm.
long Y axis uses a gear racket pinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the gas control system. And what are the main components of the gas control system, and how did you configure and integrate these parts in achieve the cutting functionality?
Yeah, I use the Skyfired auxiliary gas control systems that you guys sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
and the package included all the necessary components and the hose and the fittings.
Mm-hmm.
And there was plenty of fitting options, so I chose to arrange everything as
Yeah.
compact as I possibly could to get
Uh-huh.
it to fit down into the floor of my machine.
Mm-hmm.
And most things were push connect fitting, so it was real easy to hook up
Mm-hmm.
and wired into the controller. Yeah, so now I can control my oxygen on and off and
Mm-hmm.
the flow rate. And I have a separate line that can control the nitrogen or compressed air, depending on what gas I want to use.
Okay, so I do have a personal question. That
Yeah.
was it complicated for process to assemble these gas control parts together as a gas control module? Was it complicated?
No, not
Mm.
no, not at all. I
Okay,
guess
because I saw,
I
yeah,
guess I would say it's coming from the point of view that I had already built another one for my first machine.
yeah,
So
yeah, you have experience, yeah,
yeah, I already had some
yeah.
experience of how it was going to go together. But I have to say that this one went together much quicker than my first one did.
Yes, yes, because I see in our warehouse that it's very separate, many laser parts. It, of course, it's impossible for me to assembling them together. But uh, why I ask this, because now we recently how to say, improve that project, the gas control project. Instead of the gas control parts, we now assembling these parts together module.
Oh
So the
wow,
customer,
yeah.
yeah. So the customers from now on, they will receive the completed one. They only
Oh wow,
receive the
yeah.
and plug and the machine. That's okay.
Wow,
So
yeah. That's
yeah,
super convenient for sure.
yes. So we
I'll
need
have to
to,
get mine that way next time.
yeah, yes, because we receive a lot of feedbacks from
Yeah.
customers that they feel hard to assemble the gas control.
Okay.
So they
Yeah.
want to be,
I guess there's a
yeah,
lot of pieces, and there's
mm-hmm.
multiple ways you could do it. So I guess having it assembled and ready to go does make it way simpler.
Also the electrical panel things,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
electrical aspect of it really complicated. We're
Yeah.
trying to release a complete standard version of electrical panel for laser tube cutting machine, for laser flatbed cutting machine, and even for the laser cleaning and the laser welding electric panel. Actually,
Okay.
the laser cleaning and the laser welding already posted on our website. They can
Oh wow, that man,
purchase right now. Yeah.
that's gonna help people put together their machine so
Yes.
much faster.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So let's talk about the advice for other DIY enthusiasts. So what advice do you have for other DIY enthusiasts interested in building their own fiber laser cutting machine?
Okay. Well, of course, I'd recommend watching my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to do a good overviews of what the project entails, and
Mm-hmm.
so you can get a good idea if you think it's within your capabilities. Then after that, I would reach out to a supplier like Skyfire and help you put together a list of components that you're going to need. That's probably the most challenging part for me at the beginning, was understanding what laser source, what cutting head, and controller and chiller I needed, and making sure they were all going to work together.
Mm-hmm.
And when I built my first machine, Skyfire didn't exist. So
Yeah.
it would sure be nice to have your support team to help me guide through all the component
Uh-huh.
selection now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what sources and tools did you use when designing and building your machine? For example, the Fusion 360 and a specific brand of aluminum profile and angle brackets.
Yeah, I've been using Fusion for probably 10 years now, so I'm getting fairly comfortable with 3D modeling on my designs even before I start a project. The only other main tool I use is the internet. I spend many hours researching products and solutions and trying to find cheap and accessible components. And it's funny, the more I've gotten into these machine building projects, the more I order directly from China. Because I can usually find many of the same parts I can find here for much cheaper. There might be a slightly longer shipping time, but I try to plan in advance, so that's not even a factor. Yeah,
That's a good point. So, what factors should DIY enthusiasts consider before starting such a project?
Well, I would say probably you have to start with the end result, your intended application, or what kind of metal and thicknesses you intend to cut. That will pretty much direct everything else. It'll determine what power of laser supply you need to get. And then that'll determine what laser cutting head and chiller you need to get. And that will also kind of dictate the general cost and the overall power requirements you're going to need. That's something that I didn't think about at first, but even like the small machines like mine, they require a lot of power that maybe the typical DIYer might not have in their garage or workshop. Like even my small machines require 240 volts, probably 50 to 60 amp circuit to run. So my electrician has been out several times to install more and more outlets for me.
Yeah. So it's need customized power supply.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about your future plans. What future improvements or developments do you have planned for this fiber laser cutting machine?
Yeah, I don't have these specific improvements planned at the moment. I want to use the machine for a little bit and get a feel for it first. Like I said, the controller does have a lot more functions that it can do. So if I decide that it needs an outfeed support table to stabilize the tube when it comes out or something like that, the functions, they're ready to go. So I could always implement that in the future. Mostly I've been watching a lot of videos of tube cutting machines online and seeing some of the cool cuts they do for bending and assembling and welding stuff. So I just want to experiment and try a bunch of stuff.
Okay, I'm excited to see that. So do you have a plan to build another DIY machine or undertake other laser cutting related projects?
I have a couple lasers I would still like to build in the future. Coming up next, though, I'm looking forward to learn how to weld with the 2 kilowatt laser welder that Skyfair sent me. My electrician just installed my 60 amp circuit yesterday, so I can begin using it at its full power. And I did do a little test on one of my smaller circuits where I turned the power up just a little bit. And I did several test welds. And even by my third attempt, I had a really nice, clean looking weld. So it seems like it's going to be pretty easy to get great results. And I'm really looking forward to using that on upcoming projects. I think for my next major build project, I'm going to try to push my limits even more this year and jump right into seeing if I can build a DIY SLM 3D metal printer. And it looks like a really challenging project, and it'll probably take many months to do. But 3D printing has kind of been at the core of what sent me down this path. So if I can build a machine that can do metal, that will just be incredible and very fulfilling.
For people who are interested in DIY laser cutting machine, do you have your own forum or or communities to let them access in?
Yeah, for sure. On YouTube, I try to give a good overview of my laser cutter builds. But then for people who are really serious and want to build one and would like support, I have a Patreon page where they can support me, where I list a lot of resources and videos and whatnot. And also within that, we have a community forum where we all chat and talk about our projects and ask questions and try to help everybody.
Okay. I saw your Patreon. Yes, it's really in-depth materials.
It seems to be helping people, and it continues to slowly grow. More and more people are building DIY laser machines, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's actually I get it's really cool when people send me their photos of their machines that they're modeling off of what I started. And it's really cool to see other people doing it.
Okay. Thank you, Travis. Thank you for sharing your DIY fiber laser cutting machine project. Your work really inspired and guides many aspiring builders. Yes. So before we wrap up, do you have any final advice or some you would like to recommend to our listeners or help them to get started with their own DIY project?
Yeah, I would just say do some research. You're going to have to research and read extensively to educate yourself. So look at user manuals of the components you want to use, and look at like the specs of commercially available machines, and
Hmm.
read a bunch. Once you kind of get a general understanding of what's involved or what you want to build, then reach out to like somebody like Skyfire, and they'll help
Hmm.
take some of the guesswork out of the components you're going to need.
Okay, thank you, Travis, for sharing your experience. And thanks for our listeners for tuning in. If you are enjoying today's episode, subscribe for more interviews and technical insight. Stay tuned. Goodbye.
Bye.